everyone, this is Catherine O'Connell and welcome to Lawyer on Air. If you are looking for inspirational stories about women in law, then this is the podcast for you. Join me and my lawyer ladies as we enjoy a glass of wine after a hard day at work and talk about the world of women in law. It's my passion to share stories of amazing legal ladies who are working as in-house legal counsel, who have law firm roles, who are leading on boards, and who are doing law differently. From time to time, I will also invite special guests on the show to share their insights on legal recruiting and tips for getting hired as a successful lawyer in Japan. I hope you will enjoy getting to know these amazing women who I am so proud to share a profession with. I'm glad you're here and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode in the Lawyer on Air podcast. In this episode, I share with you another diverse story of a woman lawyer working in Japan. I'm Catherine, the host of the show, and I'm a lawyer based in Tokyo for more than 20 years, and I love helping unlock the wisdom of the stories that women lawyers never tell. What I've learned from my career in law so far is the skill of listening is the most important skill to have as a lawyer. Always be concentrating on ways to brush up and deepen your listening skills. Those are the words of my guest today, Sayaka Ohashi, who is legal counsel at Agile Plus Law Office in Tokyo. Sayaka has 20 years experience and she provides legal services both domestically and overseas with a significant focus on employment law. She also provides a lot of legal advice through pro bono activities in collaboration with her bar association. You can check out Sayaka's full bio in the show notes. On this episode, Sayaka shares how one book she read absolutely changed her life on how to be a fantastic lawyer and person. It's a book about listening to children. Yes, listening to children. And if you are a lawyer listening in, then you have to hear the stories Sayaka tells about how that technique is crucial to being an excellent lawyer. She talks about not automatically assuming what we think our clients want, but letting them tell us exactly what they need. She also shares her view that child rearing is something not just for women lawyers to do, but that male lawyers should absolutely be seizing the chance to be with their child. This helps them become a better lawyer. It's such a great story she tells. She really blew me away. Sayaka also shares how she spent time overseas in one part of her life and how she, in another part of her life, battled with depression. And both these things have given her the keys to helping people. She says that they help her more than she helps them. And if you want to know why, you'll just have to listen in. Also, you'll get Sayaka's top recommendations on Kyoto food, her hobbies of kintsugi and container gardening, and her favorite saying, as well as other fun facts. Let's get into it. Hello, Sayaka, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Catherine.
How are you this morning?
I'm perfect.
That's so good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If we were meeting up in person, Sayaka, where would we be? Do you have a favorite wine bar or restaurant that you love to go to? And what would you choose off the menu today?
Well, there are actually a few, but I would be meeting you at one of the museum restaurants, and one that's my favorite is Artisan Museum. Do you know? It's in Nihonbashi. They currently run this beautiful exhibition for abstraction paintings. It's a wonderful museum. So if you have never been there, please do. They have this gorgeous restaurant by the museum, and they have this gorgeous menu.
Oh, so what is really special from the menu that I might not have thought about or might not expect that could be a surprise for me?
Their recommendation is urchin pasta, which is just fabulous. It's fabulous.
Wow. What would you have to drink with that?
I would definitely go for wine. but anything you would like. But it's basically an Italian restaurant, so yeah, wine would be a good
Yeah, I'm trying
choice.
to think of the combination with sea urchin pasta, right?
Sea
So,
urchin, yes.
yeah, what would go well with that? What kind of wine? Maybe a cool white, perhaps, but yeah.
White wine, yes. Or
Yeah.
sparkling.
Oh, yeah, that will be it. Sparkling. Let's go for a sparkling. Fantastic. I didn't know about that art gallery or museum restaurant, right? So I will check that out sometime and hopefully we can go there together.
Definitely.
Thank you. Well, if you were thinking back, Sayaka, to your early days, perhaps when you were a child or even, a young adult coming through, do you think you can remember what kind of careers you were dreaming of or what things you were thinking about doing in the future?
Well, back in my daycare center days, when I was something like 5 or 6, I think I wanted to be a classic ballet dancer.
Oh, really?
But then I was not learning ballet. I always wanted to, but
Oh,
I've grown up with a relatively large family with 3 other sisters. We were 6 of us. So, and all girls. So basically it was not easy for my parents to pay off for classic ballet for all 4 girls. So they decided not to.
did some of your sisters take the ballet though?
No.
Oh, okay, I
And it's
see.
only me who wanted to.
Oh, yeah, that happens. I mean, I remember doing ballet, but I couldn't judge left from right. So the ballet teacher told my mom, oh, maybe Catherine would be better doing something else and not doing ballet. So I ended up doing gymnastics, which was much more fun for me. I loved it. So you didn't do ballet. What came up next then that you were thinking about if you weren't able to do the ballet? What were you thinking about after that?
I don't quite remember, but
Hmm.
I have this writing that I wrote when I was around 9 or 10. I don't remember, but I wrote I want to be a lawyer.
Oh, really?
I don't remember myself.
Goodness me. Do you remember what you wrote exactly? Like, was it just Bengo Shiri Nari Dai, I want to be a lawyer, or was there something that you wrote around that as well?
I think it was only I want to be a lawyer. What it was
Oh,
an answer to a question, what do you want to be in the future?
there you go. Do you have anyone around you who is a lawyer in your family?
I didn't, but my father, he majored in law at the university, so it probably affected me a little bit.
Maybe, right. And you yourself, you went to Tokyo University, which
Yes.
is actually the top university in Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably the hardest to get into.
Probably, yes.
What is it like at Tokyo University? Tell me what it's like there.
I don't know. Frankly, I enjoyed my high school more than university.
I think with university, it seems like in Japan it's very hard to get into university, but once you're there, it's not so bad.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. And I enjoyed my study more at high school than at the university.
And why
During
was
my
that?
university days, I only studied for the bar exam. So these are the only memories I
Oh,
have.
I see. What did you then like about school days rather than university? So university you're studying for the bar and that's your memory, but at high school, why was it different?
Well, initially, before high school, I was in the Middle East. I went to an
Really?
international school in the Middle East, and then I
Mm.
came back. So during my Middle East days, I did have difficulties speaking English. So when
Oh,
I came back to Japan, went to a Japanese high school, I had no difficulty speaking. So that was, it's just easy to be
right.
at school.
Do you mean when you were speaking at school, you were speaking Japanese, so it was easy?
Yes.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. So goodness me, being in a different culture, being in the Middle East and trying to speak English, and there's also your Japanese upbringing, and then, that part of the world has other languages as well. Must have been very hard. What do you remember from being in the Middle East? Is there some particular or few memories that you have that when you think about Middle East, you have this come up in your memories?
Yes, I do have beautiful memories. We were there for 4 years, and throughout the 4 years period, there was a Gulf War in between. So we came back to Japan once and then returned back again to the Middle East. We were in an island called Bahrain, just beside Saudi Arabia. So basically, the culture is Arabic, which I had never been exposed to before I go there. They have the desert, they have camels, they have those gold markets.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, just things were so much different. Things were just nothing that I ever imagined. And
Exactly.
that was the first place I went overseas.
Wow, be such a significant memory. Can you remember seeing Arabic language and speaking it or writing it, or how about that?
Yeah, I didn't get to speak it. We were busy studying English.
Yeah.
We didn't get to use Arabic, but we had
Mm.
to be able to read the numbers at least, because the numbers they use these Arabic numbers. So you have to be at least able to read the numbers. Say, for example, on the money, they only have this Arabic numbers. So if you cannot read Arabic numbers, you don't know how much you have in your hand.
Ah, of course. That is really interesting because I saw something on LinkedIn the other day about Arabic language, and it's actually the language that has the richest vocabulary in the world. And I think a lot of English words are borrowed from Arabic, like that have a kind of harder sound at the beginning, like alkaline and
Mhm.
algebra and alcohol.
Alcohol, yes.
Yeah, and coffee and hazard. And there's words like that that come from Arabic, even words like sherbet and sofa and tariff. Apparently, these
Mm.
words also come from Arabic, which was really fascinating for me. I found myself going down a rabbit hole looking into the language, and I think it actually just confirmed a bias for me that I don't know enough about that language. And so you've now inspired me again to look into it a bit more. How interesting! I didn't realize that about you and your background.
So I tried learning Arabic back in Japan at the university. I learned actually for 1 year, but then it was too difficult. It's such a
Oh.
difficult language to learn.
I've heard it's very difficult too, and I think unless you're surrounded by it and you've got it in your life every single day, it must be pretty hard to learn.
Mm.
But well done for you for trying it at university. Great. So you did study law at university and you did the bar, and then you came
Mhm.
out of all of that and you went into a large law firm as your first job. And I think before today, when you sent me a couple of notes through, you said that you really challenged, being someone who can communicate and help persuade the people that you're working with, as in the different parties who might be arguing in disputes,
Mhm.
and how you like to help them with tenacity. And I love that word tenacity because it means you're just going to go for it and really try and get to a solution in some way. But tell me about that way of working that you like to do and why that it was really important for you to work in that kind of way when you were in those first few years as a private practice lawyer.
So initially, before I joined this law firm, I was thinking of working for a much smaller law firm with just 4 or 5 lawyers. But then I decided to join this large law firm because I wanted to study abroad at the law school in the US. And they send from this law firm, send lawyers overseas to study. So I was determined almost to go study abroad, which is why I chose this law firm. And this law firm, they do have a variety of works, but they emphasize on financial cases, which is not necessarily my favorite kind of work to do. I decided I probably want to do work that relates to communicating with people, which is not finance. So basically, I said when I joined this law firm, I'm not really interested in finance. And they decided she's probably fit for employment. So
Oh, I
that
see.
is how I started to do employment
Right.
related issues.
I wanted to know that because I was going to ask you, you seem to have been drawn into the employment law area, and that was really interesting. And I love how you've picked out that Finance is not work that communicates with people. Sorry to all our finance lawyers out there, but I hadn't heard anyone say it that way before. It kind of makes sense to me now. I've just had this very large download going, that's why I could never get in touch with my finance lawyer friends because I couldn't communicate the same language. Oh, that's very funny, but sorry to our finance friends. Then you're working in employment law, right? Did you like it? Did you enjoy
I
it?
loved it.
Yeah,
I loved working for the employment law area. I
right.
just loved it.
It sounds like the people who thought you might be more geared up for that kind of sorted out your maybe your personality, your adaptability, your skills really well. What did you like about employment law?
I liked, first of all, I enjoy communicating itself. And then also, there are always people that are suffering when I deal with employment issues. There are people who are asked to resign from the company. There are people who are told that their wages will be reduced from next month. There are always people who are suffering. And to deal with employment issues is to try to untangle these small pains, small sufferings, and try to get things back on the road. That is what I
Yes.
enjoy the most.
Yeah, it's like having a neck that's all knotted up, right? Kotteru. Some people talk about that kind of neck where you can't, you're tight in the neck and then you're untangling the knots in somebody's neck, to help them through the resignation issue or reducing their wages. It's a really tough thing to go through. And I know that you try and get them on their way. How do you do that? How do you help someone get through something like that as a lawyer? What do you need to have in your tool belt? I mean, you need to know about employment law, but what else do you need to know and to do? And what kind of lawyer do you need to be to help people in that way?
Personally, I think to be an employment lawyer, you have to be able to listen to people, which is a skill that most lawyers should have, but some of them actually don't. Listening is quite important. It's the one and only skill you need as an employment lawyer. Employment law expertise is a definitely must, but listening skill is
Yeah,
definitely
I think
important.
they often say that's why we have one mouth and two ears, right? We've got two ears because we're supposed to be using them twice as much as the mouth.
Exactly. And lawyers prefer to, they enjoy speaking. Most lawyers, I think, but most lawyers enjoy speaking more than listening. But I enjoy listening.
How do you get people to kind of get to a place where they have got untangled? You're listening to them, but what else happens that they get to that position? How do you think that you guide them to get to that place?
Well, as you listen, there are always hints that leads to a solution. When you listen, your counterparty tries to find a way to express what they want, which they probably never did before speaking to a lawyer.
Right, they might have missed those hints, yeah? And
yeah.
you know the hints.
So yeah, I try to draw out what they have in mind, what they didn't know that they had in mind.
Right. So you obviously enjoy being of assistance to someone or some people.
Definitely. And I've got 3 children. Listening to children is just the same as you listen to your client or your counterparty. So having 3 children helped me so much, to brush up my skill of listening.
In what way?
Before I have my children and until my elder son becomes 4 or 5, I was only when I listened to my children talk, I wasn't really listening. I was always asking, what did you do at the daycare today? Did you enjoy? What did you talk with your friends? What did you eat? Is what I was doing at the dinner table with my children. But then I read a book about child raising, which is basically full of suggestions on how to listen to children. and how to
Oh,
talk in a way so that children would listen. The title of
oh,
the book is something like this. So it's an American book, I think.
right.
It's a great book for child raising. What they suggest is that when you listen, you don't ask questions. You don't ask, what did you do? What did you enjoy? You just sit there
Oh,
quietly. You just sit
right.
there at the dinner table, not say anything. Wait until your children start saying something. And if they don't, there is nothing they think they should talk about. So if they keep quiet, keep quiet. Don't ask questions. And I tried that. I tried that. Before then, I was talking to my children, and they were listening. I wasn't listening. But then, after reading this book, I try to really listen. I try to be quiet, wait until my children start talking, and they talk. And they talk. It's an amazing experience. That is exactly what I do when I talk to my clients. I don't ask questions. I mean, for fact-finding purposes, I do ask questions. But then after finding facts, I don't ask questions. I just listen. I wait until they start talking what they have to talk.
Oh, I love it. So you just ask them questions and then you just pause and see what they say.
Yeah. And they
Oh,
do have a lot to say. Your children, your clients, they do have so much to say. Just getting back to sorry, not about my clients, but my son. There's this episode that I always want to tell to people who raise children. When he was 5 or 6, he was invited to a birthday party from his friend, and he went to the party and he came back. And that was around the time I read this book about child raising. Normally, I would have asked, did you enjoy the party? Who were present? And what did they bring for present? You know, those kind of things. And what did you eat at the party? But then I had just read this child raising book. So I decided not to ask what happened at the party and stay quiet. And we were at the dinner table. He didn't say anything. So I figured out, but it was probably a boring party. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask anything. But then after half an hour or so, he said, there was a dog at the party. And that was all he said about the party. So nothing else that took place at the party was important. What was important for him was that there was a dog.
ah, and that's it. That's all he said.
That's it. That's all he said.
Wow. And what does that mean for you now when you think about your clients from that's your son's story, which obviously stays with you?
You automatically decide this should be something important for this client. This should normally be important. But when you open up the box, it's not necessarily the case. The client may not necessarily have significance on what other people would normally think important. They might have something different in their mind, which is I would definitely want to drag out and listen to.
That is gold. I mean, we automatically, I'm just saying we collectively automatically do assume and decide what's important for them.
Hmm.
You're talking about opening a box and actually finding out what really is important. That's absolute brilliance. Thank you, Sayaka. That's amazing. Really love that. And so you go through this sort of process of where you're listening so much, you're finding the hints, and then you really succeed. You get to the point where you succeed in settling the dispute. And I feel it must be very heartwarming for you and give you lots of strength. Tell me about how it feels at the end when you resolve something for someone. And I'm really curious to know if those people stay in touch with you after they've had their problem resolved by you.
Some people do, but because basically, after leaving this large law firm, I've mostly been engaging in cases for individuals more than companies. Basically, when their cases are over, it's better they don't come back.
Okay.
It's better I don't hear anything else from them anymore.
It means that things are going.
It's what I tell
okay.
them when
right.
they leave.
Right. So that makes a lot of sense. But before you move on then, did you ever get to go to the US when you were at that law firm?
No,
No.
I didn't. The reason is I was with this law firm for over 12 years, I think. But then throughout the 12-year period, my 3 children came to life. So,
Right.
so on my first year, my elder son came. On
Right.
my 3 years later, my daughter came, and another year later, my baby son came. So I was busy
You're
raising
busy. You were
children.
busy. You're very
Yeah,
busy. Oh,
exactly.
right. So you did, though, leave that firm and then you did, in fact, join a smaller, perhaps domestic firm in Japan.
Actually, when I left this law firm, my husband was working. He's a public prosecutor, but at the time he was working for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he was seconded overseas to Paris. So I decided that my whole family we decided to go with him.
Oh, I see. That explains a lot about you. Your vibe, your aura is very Parisian. You are very kind of French and stylish in the way that you present yourself, and some of the activities you do we'll talk about a little bit later. But that explains a lot to me. I think Paris must have been quite impactful for you.
Definitely, indeed, it was so impactful. What was most impactful to me during my days in Paris was that parents enjoy being themselves. To explain a bit further,
Yes.
particularly the mothers in Japan, we do have a lot of stress. Being a mother, raising children in Japan is a stressful work. But in Paris, they enjoy being themselves. They enjoy what they want to do. They don't sacrifice themselves.
Is it not a sacrifice to go overseas with 3 children?
To me, it was rather my request to my
Ah,
husband. I asked my husband, I want to live overseas, and he decided. He's a 100% domestic person, but for me, he decided he could accept this job offer to, go abroad. So
yeah.
it wasn't a sacrifice; it was rather my request.
Right. So I asked you that because actually what I'm getting at is it's not really a sacrifice. It's such an opportunity. And
Mm.
you might think it's a sacrifice. I'm going to follow my husband and oh, how am I going to cope with 3 children? But it sounds like you've flipped that round and you said you can actually enjoy yourself out of the pressures of being back in Japan as a stressed mother. And you could go there and you could really actually get into it and enjoy the new surroundings.
I did enjoy. I mean, living in Paris is stressful as well,
Of
in
course,
a
in a
sense.
different way.
Yeah, in a different way, but in a totally different way. And what was most stressful to me was the pressure in Japan as a mother. So outside Japan, I was 100% released from that stress. I could enjoy
Mm,
myself. I could enjoy being myself, and to see people enjoying themselves, it's a pleasure.
right. How long were you there then?
3 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Your children grew up substantially
Yeah.
as well.
Mm.
Did they attend like a Japanese school there?
No, they went to an international school.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Mm.
What do they say now when you listen to them talk? What do they say about their time in France?
They enjoyed overall, but particularly my elder son, he was 10 or 11 when we went to Paris, came back during the middle school. So when we first went there, we were worried the most about the elder son because he was not young. We thought it would be difficult for him to get used to the environment, but then it turned out he enjoyed the most.
Great. What would you say to people who are thinking about joining their wife or their husband to go overseas on an assignment? What would you tell them?
I think it depends on a person. If it's a person who would enjoy being in a new environment, I would definitely suggest to accompany your spouse and go abroad. But then there are people who don't necessarily enjoy new environment and the language issue. I love being overseas because I speak English, and that helps so much. Even in Paris, where they speak French, being able to speak English is a huge help. And in addition to that, I did speak French. My French level is intermediate, but I do speak French. So it wasn't too difficult for me to fit in. If I couldn't speak English, if I couldn't speak French, if I could speak nothing other than Japanese, it would have been a more difficult time.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I think too, if you were with somebody and they were thinking about what to do, if they should join their husband or wife to go, maybe you would listen to them for the hints that they tell us and see if there's someone who would probably embrace that kind of environment. I agree. You know, being in France myself,
Oh,
yeah, and just on visits, just for holidays. My French is terrible. It's appalling. But being able to speak English obviously is something I don't even think about at all because they automatically go into English because my French is so poor. But sometimes I have spoken Japanese in France with someone who is French. That was quite crazy. But
oh,
yeah, there are people who do speak Japanese who are quite happy to speak Japanese too. But I love your advice. Thank you so much. And so then you did actually have that Japanese domestic firm. Is that when you came back from Paris?
Yes. So the timing I quit this large law firm was actually when I returned from Paris. I quit immediately, and then I joined another much smaller law firm where I stayed only for 1 year, and then I decided to go solo.
Yeah, so that's where we're getting to. You are now at Agile Plus Law Office. Tell us how you came up with the name and what is so different now about working for yourself.
So the name of the law firm is actually not what I decided. We started with two lawyers, myself and another partner, and he decided. So when I
Okay.
decided to go solo, he already had this name in mind. I just agreed. So agile, it comes from science field. I'm not too sure, but being agile means that, being sort of like flexible,
Yes.
not just at the beginning decide everything, but just to go along with the clients, hear the requests from the client occasionally, and just be flexible. Just leave rooms to choose this option, that option, third option. Just to be flexible is what we aim to be.
Yeah, I wonder if that person you were initially with had done a science background because I think you're right. There are, in chemistry, I think there is agile compounds. And
Mm.
those are compounds. Here we go. Here we go. They are compounds that change their form quite easily, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's coming from, is that it's a compound. You are a compound as a law firm that is changing its form easily to fit in with and go with the client in their different circumstances.
Definitely. That
And
is
changing
exactly
that
what we
third
do.
option, right? That fourth
Yeah.
option, fifth option. I think that's a great name
Mm.
for your law firm.
Thank you.
What do you love about your work? What do you find really satisfying and rewarding? And, working
Uh,
for yourself is not easy, but also has so many things that are great. So tell us about that, because I want people who are listening who might be thinking about, you and me, we're out on our own. What makes it fun and rewarding, satisfying?
Before I go solo, I thought I enjoyed um, working at an office with so many people around. But then when I started being solo, the very timing we started our office, the pandemic started. So we basically stayed home, worked remotely entirely, which is what we did have in mind before the pandemic. We only have a small share office, and we only intend to use that occasionally when we need. But basically, we both work. We are now three of us, but we all work remotely from home. That is our style. Whether there is pandemic or not. So I started to work remotely from home, which is the first experience. I never did that before. And it's completely comfortable to be working from home.
It sure is. I think so too. You have two co-workers there too, though, don't you? Two,
I do.
a
I
grey
do.
tabby cat and a black cat who are your co-workers who are obviously very much involved in your meetings. We saw them just before we took the camera off, as well as the other two lawyers that you work with. So you like working remotely. Does it
I love
impact,
that.
yeah, does it impact how you involve yourself with your clients, or do you go to your client's place or meet them some at the shared office when you need to have meetings together?
Well, yeah, basically, I do always suggest having meeting online or over phone because it's basically time consuming to go to the office, be back from the office. You don't have to spend that time, commuting. I think it's useless to spend time for commuting
I was
if you
thinking the
don't have
same
to.
this
Yeah.
morning. I was like, oh, I'm so glad I work from home because I don't have to take the time. And especially today where it's 35 degrees in Tokyo, it's a chance to stay in your own environment and keep cool and enjoy the environment of home, but also not have that hassle and waste of time traveling. I really believe that's the most important and the most satisfying part about having an office at home.
Yes, and I do because I do have three children, not
Yes.
just two cat co-workers, but I do have three children to take care of. So,
Your
household
interns, we'll
work.
call them the interns. Yeah, you've got three interns and two co-workers and another couple of lawyers that you work with. So you've got a large
So
law
you have
firm.
a large law firm, and one of the interns, who is my baby son, he's not baby anymore, but he's 13, will be 14 soon. He is actually an intern. He helps me,
Oh, he is an
file
intern.
things. Yeah, he helps me take photocopies. He helps me,
Oh,
put documents in files. He listens so closely to whatever I communicate with my client, and he asks
mm.
questions. He's interested.
What kinds of questions does he ask?
I do implement issues. So for
Mm.
example, when I'm talking with my individual client who has been harassed at the company and who is asked to resign, he is very closely, keenly listening and ask me after the meeting what happened to this lady and why is the company asking her to leave? She's the one harassed. Those kind
Mm.
of questions. He's
Mm.
interested.
There you go. Do you think he or any of the other interns may follow in your footsteps and become
Uh,
a lawyer?
I don't think so. Currently, my daughter says she wants to be a doctor. My eldest son, he wants to study entomology. He's really into insects. And my baby son, I'm not sure, but he says he will not be a lawyer.
Fair enough. But interesting, isn't it, what they want to do? And how about them seeing you as a mum who is running, basically running her practice? You've got two other lawyers there, but do they talk about you as a businesswoman? Or like, kakui mom, you're so cool with this kind of way that you do things. Because it's different probably to their friends' mothers, maybe. I'm just
Probably,
assuming
yeah.
here. But do you get any feedback from your interns about that?
Well, well, they do, but one of the most frequent comments from my interns is that because I do handle cases for individual clients who are not necessarily rich, or I would say somewhat really poor, and I rather want to take on the cases not necessarily for the rich people, but for those who are in need. So one of the comments that I receive from my children, eh, frequently is that, "Oh, Mom, why don't you try to do works that is you can earn more?" is what they say.
Mm. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I tell them I do have company clients and I do enjoy sometimes doing work for companies, and that is enough for me to earn for a living. What I enjoy most, and the reason I became a lawyer is to help people in need.
Mm.
So I cannot live without helping people.
Exactly. Right. And you do some work too, I think, through the bar, pro bono.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
I would say 40% of my work is like pro bono.
Oh, amazing. That's really amazing. But you're certainly helping people in this country, in this city who need the help, right? It just shows you
And
how many
yeah,
people
and
need it.
I am helping people, but it's actually sometimes I feel it's the opposite. They are helping me live. Like I said,
Mm,
I don't just enjoy helping people, but I just can't not help people. I'm born
right.
to help people.
How do they help you?
To feel that I am needed, to feel that I am my support is needed is
Mm.
is helping me be myself.
That's really, really, really heartwarming to hear that actually, because we can get so involved, as you just said, with the money side of things and the whole essence of what we're doing and our promise to, the court, to the bar, to society is actually to be helping people. And sometimes we can lose sight of
Mm.
that in our career path. So I really thank you for saying that and calling it out. So I'm going to ask you to finish a sentence for me. The most important thing I have learned from my career in law so far is.
The most important thing I've learned from my career is the skill of listening, I think. I have said this repeatedly in this conversation, but the listening skill, I wouldn't have tried to deepen the skill, try to brush up the skill any further if I wasn't a lawyer, if I wasn't in a career that requires listening skills.
Mm, absolutely. And you also don't only spend your time in the law, you have a couple of other really lovely activities that you get involved in. Your floral art, right? You're doing you're a florist,
Yes,
right? And you do container gardening.
I do. I do.
This
And
is where I
I
get this
love.
Paris thing about you. I don't know why, but I feel very Parisian when I think about florists and flowers and the way that they do all of their beautiful gardens there. Is that something that impacted you to start this, or what brought flowers and floral arrangement into your life?
Well, 2 years ago, our family, we moved to a house from an apartment and we got to get a tiny, tiny garden. And initially, I thought maybe just a few plants. But then I found myself so much enjoying gardening. And then I started to think about, because I spent so much money on planting, I thought maybe I should turn this to a business so I could just at least earn whatever I spend. So that is
So
how
it's
it
like a side
began.
business?
It's a side business. I just started a few months back, so
Wow.
it's a brand new business.
So how do you have a shop or you do things online? How do you operate the
I
business?
do I do I don't have a shop. I only sell online, and because I just started, my clients are basically my friends for now.
Well, I'm sure there'll be listeners here and lots of our Lawyer on Air community can become your clients. What kind of things can you do? Is it bouquets, or what sort of things do you prepare and send out to people?
I do container garden. So
Okay.
basically, I
Okay.
only do container garden.
So what does that look like?
So it comes in a pot, flower
Hmm.
pot, and
Hmm.
I plant multiple flowers in one pot,
Right.
seasonal flowers.
And you send it to the person's place.
Yes.
Right. So they can choose the container and perhaps the flowers, or you can give the suggestions on what would go well together.
Yes, definitely. So that also requires listening skills, but depends on what you would like to order. If you would like
Yeah.
me to decide everything, I decide everything. If the client wants to just choose the pot and leave it to me to decide the plants, and I do that. And there are
Mm.
people who just decide the color. I want blue, and I
Right.
prepare something blue.
Right. So you're again very agile in
Yeah,
the way that you prepare
exactly.
these. Right. Interesting. And the other thing that you do is you've started practicing kintsugi.
Kintsugi. Yes. Do you know kintsugi? Have you
Well,
heard of
I
that?
do. I'll tell you one story. I broke one of the rice bowls that I have, which has got a cute little usagi rabbit design on
Mm,
it. And my brother had given it
mm-hmm,
to me when we were traveling to Nagasaki, and I
mm-hmm.
broke it. And someone said to me, "Oh, don't wait for a Kinski class to come up. Just throw it away. You'll find another one." And I just couldn't and couldn't and couldn't. And I kept it for a year in my cupboard. It was sitting in a plastic bag and it was broken. And I kept looking at it going, "Gomen, sorry, I'll look after you someday." And actually just couldn't throw it away because of sentimental value. And then a class came up and I went and did it. And now she is repaired with kintsugi. And I'm just so glad that I held on to the pieces that I could put them
Mm-hmm.
together again. And so
Yeah.
doing that process of what you're doing just made it mean something to me, that I could bring a broken piece of porcelain together.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what it does for you. What does Kinski tell you about life, and why are you doing this activity?
Initially, it's like yourself. I had this piece of beautiful porcelain that I love so much that broke into pieces that I just couldn't throw away. So I just kept the pieces for years, like yourself. And then because I enjoy other Japanese traditional culture like kabuki. I enjoy wearing kimono. I like things Japanese, and because I have a look at on Instagram or Twitter, for example, because I have a look at Japanese culture related posts. Kintsugi came up to me one day, just a few months ago, and I had a closer look at that, and decided this is what I wanted to do. So on the very day I reached out at a kintsugi master and
Mm.
decided to take a class. So I'm taking a master course.
Oh, you're taking a master's course in it. Great. So we can all learn from you at some point to do, perhaps you'll start
Yes.
teaching container
So
gardening
yeah,
too.
whenever you have broken pieces of porcelain you cannot throw away, just let me know.
Yes, keep them, everybody. And then we will do, why don't we do a big class for the lawyers on air who've broken things, and you can bring them all together and we can do a Kinski class. That would be amazing. I think it's fantastic. I'm so glad I didn't throw it away. There are ways to repair things. And what's the symbolism behind Kinski? Why do we use this to bring pieces back together? Is there some meaning in life that it has?
Well, it's not just repairing things that broke into pieces. When it's repaired, it's more than it was originally. And the process of mending, process of repairing, when you do that, you concentrate more than when you're doing anything else. You don't remember how long you have been sitting on the chair, repairing, mending. For me, it's a time of concentration that never happens when I am at home working with interns, with co-workers.
And I imagine you're concentrating on the piece itself more than you would if you were using it as a daily item. For example, the
Mhm.
rice bowl I mentioned. I would
Yeah,
use it for rice and just think this is lovely and oh, I love that design. And now when I see it, it has so much more meaning to me than it originally
definitely.
had, even. It's got
Mm.
another enhanced meaning to it. I love how you've explained that. Thank you. Anything else you wanted to say there about the floral art and your Kinski?
Since I started kintsugi lessons, um, I I feel like I'm not afraid of breaking things anymore. Before, we are a family of five, so when I buy plates, I would always buy six because I always want to have five for the family. But then after I began the lessons, I only have to buy five because when one is broken, I can always repair them.
Ah, I love that too, because often in Japan, plates are sold in odd numbers, aren't they? Fives or sevens or threes.
Yeah.
So you would be buying a set of five and an extra one. So you don't have
Yeah,
to do that anymore. Wonderful.
right.
Not being afraid of breaking things. Interesting. Okay, well, how about some other things to do with the law? I know a lot of young people do listen to this podcast, lawyers who are just starting out, or law students who are coming through from law school, what would be some advice that you'd like to give them as they start their careers? Maybe it's even advice that you received that was really good.
I would suggest not to do whatever other people suggest you to do, but to pursue whatever they want to do, be it something so unique no one else is doing. Just pursue whatever you feel is right to do, whatever you feel you want to do. Because it sounds like just an ordinary suggestion, but to live in Japan, to pursue things that other people are not necessarily doing is quite difficult.
It is, isn't it? It's difficult because you stand out.
Yeah.
And often in Japan, as a broad comment, standing out is not always a good thing.
Definitely.
Or it's
Exactly.
not seen as a good thing, right? We should all be similar.
That's what I tell my children, that I tell them to be unique. All people are unique, but don't be afraid to be unique. Just don't be afraid to stand out.
Yeah, don't be afraid to stand out. I love that. And anything particularly for women lawyers, perhaps now, as a woman lawyer yourself, anything that you would give as advice for them?
Just don't do everything on your own. Just try to ask for help. is the only thing I can tell. I say that because about 7 or 8 years ago, before I moved to Paris, because of hard work, too much workload, I had to take a leave from work for half a year to rest. I suffer from depression. I had to take care of my children all on my own. I had no help whatsoever. I had too much to do. I had too much stress. So to think back, I should have asked for help. There might have been things I could have done. I could have always quit the law firm and switched to another, less workload law firm. But then I didn't. It just didn't occur to me. I didn't have time to think about anything. So don't try to do everything on your own.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And we do have to ask for help. We can't exist as an island by ourselves. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you wanted to mention, Sayaka, or anything that you did talk about that you just wanted to re-emphasize again?
I just gave you a suggestion for women lawyers, but for men lawyers, I do have suggestions. My listening skills were brushed up through raising children, and raising children is definitely something that gives you hints for lawyers' work, which is not necessarily what men lawyers would think, but it's definitely the case. So if you are young, if you are thinking of having children, or you already have children, and if you are men lawyers, I would suggest you engage in child raising.
Wow, that is really super. I don't know that I've heard anyone say that. And I think that is amazing advice, right? That you're missing out on so much. As you just said, the hints that you can get from listening to your children are brushed up through raising children. And I think that's brilliant advice for both male and female. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately, but a couple of lighter questions just at the end. Let me know, what is your favorite Japanese food and where can I get it from? You talked about the uni pasta at the very beginning, right? But what else? What about Japanese food? Real Japanese food. What's your favorite?
Real Japanese food.
Japanese food.
I enjoy Uji Kintoki, which is Uji Kintoki. How should I put it?
Uji Kintoki.
Uji Kintoki. You can get that in Kyoto. You can get that in Tokyo. You can get anything in Tokyo, but basically it's originally from Kyoto. Uji is a place in Kyoto. Kintoki is something you crush ice and you pour Uji tea, a sweet Uji tea over it, and you eat it. It's a summer food.
Right.
You can find it in Tokyo, but the ones they sell in Kyoto is is just
A bit
exquisite.
amazing. Yeah, because Uji's a tea
Amazing.
growing area, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Wow. And so maybe it's Kyoto, but what's the place that you most recommend people visit when they come to Japan?
Kyoto.
Kyoto.
I
Okay.
used to live in Kyoto for 1 year. It was
Ah.
an amazing place any time of the year.
If you were going to greet somebody in Kyoto, how do you say hello in Kyoto dialect?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Is there some expression for see you later or thank you that is I thought there was something like
Oh.
Ohayo san dosue or something like that.
That is that's used by geisha-san, I
Oh,
think.
right. There you go.
Mm.
Is there anything like that you would say to people when you're there that they know that you're from Kyoto, definitely Kyoto person?
Not the words, but the sound you have. The
Ah,
sound you have, you can definitely sense that the person is from Kyoto.
I
It's
like, yeah.
closer to Osaka Ben, but
Right.
it has softer,
Softer intonation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite saying in Japanese or English? Some kotowaza or something that's been said to you that you often maybe repeat to your interns, perhaps?
I don't particularly have one. The only thing I always tell my my interns, I tell them to be unique, always
Hmm.
to be unique.
Be unique, yeah. And is there
It's my
anything,
saying.
yeah, it's your saying. Is there anything that you've been reading recently, like a book, audio book, listening to, that you would recommend people?
I recommend this child raising book.
Ah,
I
yes.
forgot the exact title, but it was
You can let
something
us know
like
and we'll pop it in the show notes for later.
yeah, I think it was something like how to talk so that your children would listen, how to listen so your children would talk,
Ah,
something like that.
that's great title.
It's a Bible to me.
Oh, great title. I'd love to see that. We should all read it. All
Yeah,
lawyers should read this book. If you were not a lawyer, what would you be doing?
I would be a classic ballet dancer.
Ah, let's come back to ballet. Still time, perhaps. Yeah, who knows? And the final question is, if you were given an opportunity to spend one day with anyone at all, could be famous, may not be famous, who would that person be and why?
Then I would be spending time with my late grandfather, who would always tell me that I was super, I'm a genius, and would just tell me that you will be someone extraordinary.
Don't make me cry. That's so lovely. Wow. What a way to finish. Thank you so much, Sayaka. We have come to the end. That was a lovely way to wind up the episode. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Catherine. I enjoyed speaking to you too.
Thank you for letting me call your cats, your co-workers, and call your children interns. It's been a little fun laughing thread throughout the whole episode, and I really appreciate that you let me do that. For people who would love to connect with you, can they do that through LinkedIn, or is there another way that they can get in touch with you?
LinkedIn would be fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. We'll put your LinkedIn details into the show notes. And for anyone else who's been listening, if you love this, I'd love to hear that from you. So please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can even go over to our website and leave a voice message. We do love hearing from you. And for everybody else, thank you so much for today, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now. Thank you so much for listening today to this episode of Lawyer on Air. I really hope that you were inspired by the story you heard and that you discovered something new about women in the law. Please subscribe to the show so that you don't miss future episodes. And if you can think of even just one person to share this episode with, that would make my day. I invite you to connect with me to talk more. Jump on over to LinkedIn or Instagram where you can find me, or send me a message via my website contact page. That's all from me today. I look forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Lawyer on Air. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now.